What's up, everybody, and welcome to BioS3 Raw TV. Today we're going to talk about a subject that can be a little confusing because now with the fat loss pictures that I put up myself on my Instagram, Facebook, etc., the Diet Guy on Facebook, and BioS3 Training on Instagram. I think it's Jerry Ward II at Instagram. I can't remember the address, but there's a link to it on the homepage. I'm getting questions about, excuse me, well, I thought you burned muscle if you do cardio in a fasted state. And it dawned on me that you guys are not talking about a fasted state. You're talking about a state of starvation, which is a completely different thing than a fasted state. Now, every single one of us, when you go to bed at night, so let's say you go to bed at 9 o'clock, and you get up in the morning at 7. Are you in a starved state in starvation? No, you're in a fasted state. Your blood sugar has dropped. Your body has slowed down a little bit, but you're not in a starved state. Now, if you reduced your calories, let's say you're eating 2,300 calories a day, and you reduced your calories by 1,000, so you're eating 1,300 a day for a week. Now you are in a starved state. Your metabolism will slow down. You more than likely will build muscle from pulling so many calories so fast. And now, yes, if you got up in the morning after a 1,000 calorie deficit in your diet for a week, you are probably going to burn muscle. Now, why is that the way it is? Why does that happen? Because your body essentially doesn't give a shit about burning fat. It doesn't give a shit about looking good on the beach. It doesn't care about winning your next competition. It wants to survive, okay? And it has all these survival mechanisms. And one of those things is to utilize forms of energy that are easier to use first. Okay, so now if it wants to break down body fat, it was actually harder to do than burn glucose. It would do that, but it doesn't like to do that. What happens is it actually starts to, when the carbohydrates and glucose run out of your system, it will break down protein. It's called catabolism, okay? Once it breaks down the muscle tissue on your body and turns those proteins into carbohydrates or glucose, which is called gluconeogenesis, it will get to a certain point where your body realizes, shit, there's nothing else coming in, I'm starving. Let's hold up on the protein digestion here and making glucose, because basically we're going to kill ourselves faster if we keep breaking down this glucose. All this muscle tissue is going to be gone, and eventually your heart and stuff is just not going to work. And what it does is it starts to break down body fat and use ketones and body fat for energy. Okay? So what's going to happen is after all of your body fat is gone and you're still starving, so this is like if you're in a desert starving your ass off for weeks at a time, once your body fat levels get to the point where there's nothing left to use, it'll go back to the muscle until you're finally starved off and pretty much dead. This is what we saw in the concentration camps in World War II and stuff. Those guys, when they came out of the concentration camps, were so lean, but so small that you could almost see, well, some of them you could see their skeletons because of the fact that it had chewed up all the fat and had chewed up all of their muscle tissue. That's a starvation mode. Okay, going to fasting mode from not eating overnight is not the same thing. Okay, so there's a confusion, a misconception that starvation is fasting. Now, I do feel like if you push the fasting too far, that it does become a semi-starvation mode. Okay, when you're asleep, your body actually slows down while you're asleep. If you're awake and you're fasting, there's definitely going to be a different chain reaction that happens that causes different results. Now, if you're over and over again doing this where you're fasting for like 20 hours a day and eating for 4, which is an intermittent fasting type thing, I do believe that the body has a tendency to want to burn muscle before it wants to burn fat. Now, some people are like, well, that's not true. I tried it. Here's the bottom line. Everybody who does this intermittent fasting doesn't have big muscles, okay? They're maybe 150 pounds, 160 pounds max, which to me, that's not a big person. That's not a big muscular bodybuilder by any means or any stretch of the imagination. And even some of these powerlifters, like there was a pro powerlifter strongman named Mark Bell, Smelly Bell, whichever one that one was. And, Lionel McDonald jumped in and kind of gave me some shit about, oh, you don't think the carb backloading intermittent fasting stuff works? Look at the Bell guy, Smelly. Yeah, he lost like fucking 30 pounds of muscle. He looks totally different. We saw him in 2011 at the Arnold, or 2012. We saw him in 2012 at the Arnold. He was fucking gigantic, huge, thick, massive. Yes, a little bit on the fat side. He was a powerlifter though. Then we saw him in 2013 at the Arnold. Not only was he leaner, but he was downsized a hell of a lot smaller Because he has lost that muscle, and now he's gone from the powerlifting into the CrossFit stuff, which is not so much power and strength. He's weaker, but he's working on endurance type stuff in being strong. Which means he lost strength, he lost muscle mass. So even in that rare instance of somebody who is well known and talks about taking drugs, has lost muscle on the fasting, which the fasting has gone to the point of being starvation. That's how it works. Okay, so no, if you do cardio at a fasted state, you will absolutely not burn muscle. Well, I shouldn't say that. It could happen to some people. Fast metabolisms, I can definitely see you putting too much effort into cardio and having the intensity too high to where the body can't keep up and it will start breaking down muscle tissue. So there's like that balance. You have to know how much cardio to do, what type of cardio to do, when to call it quits. You have to keep an eye on all this stuff and monitor to make sure that you're not losing muscle. But just because you get on the treadmill in the morning and walk at 2.5 for 20 minutes does not mean that you're burning muscle and screwing up your metabolism or losing any of that muscle at all. Does it mean you're tapping into fat stores? Possibly it does, but it does mean it's increasing your metabolism for the rest of the day. And that's part of the reason why we all do it. Now, again, I put up some pictures to prove my arms, my shoulders, my traps, my chest, all of that stuff is the same size as when I was 250 at 188 pounds is what I wound up at. But my waist came down, my neck came down, and my inner thighs, the places where I store all the fat. So the fat came off and the muscle stayed, which means obviously I did not starve. Obviously it didn't matter how fast I dropped the weight. The whole process being dropped fat and maintained muscle mass. Okay, and the main reason for that, people go drugs. Lots of people do drugs and can't do what I just did. Okay, part of it, genetics could be, but the other part of it is the weight training that I do to failure, which some of you have seen in my videos. You laugh at it, but training that intense helped me maintain my mass while dieting. BioStreetTraining@gmail.com. Leave comments down below. www.biostreettraining.com is the blog, and we're out.